Okay, so it goes forward, no heavy aspects, until then it'll, first aspect it'll no, that's a semi-square. No, that's when it goes direct. Okay, so it goes direct in 2027 in Leo. So okay, here's the point I wanted to get to. In September 15, no, July 2016, Venus went into Leo. It backed up into Leo, really in February. So it backed into Leo by the fall of September 15. This is a 0 Virgo, but that's when it's going back into Leo. So it's in Leo, and it goes direct in Leo in 1740. It comes out of Leo in 2037. So in her whole life, Venus is in Virgo and fussy over this whole time, but in Virgo and fussy, but here it's in Leo, and it gets empowered by the sun. It gets a little more glorious. So even though it's retrograde going direct, it's picking up some confidence and some energy. It has to turn things around. And this is the period, like, so starting 15, just follow us forward. We're now at 19, 28, and this is the period she's studying her astrology. So some of this, going back to completely learning and studying and picking up something she wants, comes up here in the Leo phase, and she's going to use this. She's going to make use of it. It's going to be appreciated for the knowledge she has. And since she has the Venus in the 9th house and Uranus Pluto there, the radical understanding, she's going to use this understanding to advise people, to guide people, and it's going to start really connecting for her by 2027, and then it just goes straight forward, goes back over all these things again. Okay, so we have the chart. So these are, we have the scale, the ephemeris, the printout, or you have your printout on the ephemeris. That would work just as well. But it doesn't have the hexagrams or the pentans in it, but it still has, you can follow it from that, and then you see it through this. Okay, so we've got a lot to go through, so I'm just gonna keep going here to the next one. And from here, I have to get rid of that. 4. Here we go. Get it bigger. Okay. So here we have Leo, July 31st, 67. Okay, so here's the chart. Sun's up in the 10th house, moon's up in the 8th house. So now this is a chart mostly functional. Venus is just in the 12th house. I think it's just in the 12th house. Yep, it's in the 12th house. And it's, yeah, so it starts in the 12th house in Virgo, another Venus in Virgo. And when we look at this a little more closely, see, her Venus is going to go forward, it's going to back up, much like the other one, it's going to go forward, but it's not going to get out of Virgo in her lifetime. And again, it's going to be a little bit of phase in Leo, backs up a little bit in Leo. So let's just get a little bit of a closer look at this. Okay, so this is how I mark up the ephemeris. It's like you can take a copy of your chart and mark these in, and do one copy for Mercury, one copy for you. Do each one, so you have a page for each one when you want to look at it. Then you can have notes you can put in around what's happening around if you're keeping notes or track of it. But you see her Venus was there at 12 degrees and moved forward and then turned around, just like mine. It turned around very early. It was 51. So from no, that's not 20. It's 76. So from 67 to 76, you got 9 years old that turned around. And her values developed at one time, and then her values turned around completely. And that would have been from 9 till about 17. Her whole teenage years would have been in that 1 degree turning around. And retrograde came back to its own Venus position in 1983. So by 83, 67, 77, 83, she's only 15, and Venus comes back to its own place, her starting point. And then it starts moving back before this lifetime, back into an inner side of things. It's like there's something emotionally that was connected to another lifetime. She had something that happened in a past life and she didn't deal with it all, and she moved on, and now she's having to go back and measure emotionally what happened back then. And once it gets felt out and it connects with those emotions, it can go forward again. But this is 43 years, the process, from the going retrograde to going direct. Okay, so in 1983, it conjuncted Venus and started retrograding back. Then, yeah, it's retrograde, conjuncts to Venus, it keeps going back. As it goes back, it doesn't really make any intense aspects to it. Any minor aspects are in here, but there's no major aspects. It does come up to, it will come to square the moon. Now this is very interesting. It comes up to square the moon. In 2008, no, 2007, the progressed Venus retrograde back into Virgo, into Leo, from Virgo into Leo, from 2007. In 2007, it went back, it goes back to 2740 Leo, goes back to 2740. But her moon's at 2812, so it goes back, it hits the moon in Leo, and it goes back in retrograde, it comes back, hits the moon again, and then starts going forward. And it's not till 2050 that the Venus comes back to its own place again. A lot of inner fathoming. I see these, you see these at meditative depths, so inner things, but it's not so much feeling identified to out in the world. But this is, her Venus did retrograde back out of the, went into the 12th house, back up into the 11th house. So as it hit the Venus, as soon as it went back, it's going back in the, these are all happening in the 11th house of friends, enemies, social things. Where am I fitting in? What am I doing? It's in that, it's in a somewhat social element, her values. Now, but it's interesting, the points I'm pointing at is in 2013, Venus first squared the moon, it hits the square to the moon, goes into Leo, then it squares the moon 2013. And I believe she was here and her mother was in Germany, and they were, I don't know what was going, it's probably something to do with that, where she's living, what's happening, that's there. Then I think probably when it went into Leo, she became Canadian. I think that's how this worked around there. Then it went direct, and it's going direct now. July 31st, 2019. Her Venus hit the stationary direct point. She's studying her astrology. She's going through the classes. It's not the first time she's going through the classes, and her emotions are tied in deeply to this point, and she's come back to this point. It's one, it touched the moon. Two, she's evolving things that she could teach or that she could do. The Venus is in Leo, it's backed up into Leo. Even her, she's self-critical with it in Virgo. It's in Leo now, and there's need to do something, show something, be something. Like it comes out, then it's going to go direct, and it's going to hit the moon again. It hits the moon. Where are we here? Should be marked. Oh, oh yeah, there it is. It hits the moon there in 2023. So December 2023. So in 23, it's there. So that's still 4 years away to hitting the moon. And then it's a couple more years. It's not till 2029 that it gets out of Virgo. So 2029, it goes back into Virgo out of Leo. So this period in her life is going to, emotionally, it's going to stand out as really the most dramatic with the Venus in Leo. Then it goes back into the Virgo. It's going to be much more, she's going to value her knowledge, her studying, it's going to become a more mercurial Virgo element coming in. But it's like she's gone back to get something, and some of the astrology is happening right there. So it's got to be tied into her values in some way around this. It's emotional we're looking at, not just the mental. So liking yourself, valuing yourself, and then it turns around from here and starts moving forward. And it's not till 2050 that it comes back to its own bliss. 2051, when it gets past the station, when it's at the completion point, from 2051 on, it's going forward into new territory. And she's got to run for 4 or 5 years, then it's going to hit Pluto. It's going to go forward, and it's going to hit Uranus. There's going to be, but they're conjunctions. These are significant changes in her values as she goes along here. I don't know what it is. People could live, people could die, move, business. So many things can happen, but you can see the inner person going through these changes. Okay, but never gets out of her 12th house. So, okay, let's just keep going here. The next one, sample 5. And 5 is here. here. We got 5. Everybody, this is normal for everybody. You start like usually when you're using a natal chart, you start when you see someone's sign, you just automatically see the degree it says and figure out when it's going to change to the next sign, because that's going to be in the 10s or 20s. It goes into the next sign, and it's going to be there for 30 years. So you get, and you see what house is going through. You get a certain sense of where the progressed Sun or progressed Mercury or progressed Venus is going. Mercury and Venus are going to be fairly close to the Sun, within a sign or so of the Sun. So it's going to move along in kind of the same direction usually. Okay, so here's August 25th, Leo, 1975. Okay, and we have it here. This is a chart with a lot of stress. There's the Venus is conjunct the Sun, but the Sun is in Leo, no, they're both in Virgo. It's 25th, yes, it's not Leo, it's Virgo. So it's both Sun and Venus in Virgo. My eyesight is bugging me, staring at the screen. Anyway, excuse me. But Sun and Venus conjunct Virgo, but that Venus is squared by Neptune, squared by Mars. There's a big T-square in her chart. She has 2. The moon's opposed Pluto, and Uranus, Jupiter, Saturn are all squared. So she has a lot of T-squares in her chart. This means there's a lot of tension in her life, but it doesn't mean that dominates her life. She's got her Sun conjunct Venus. This is a charming person. This is the house of business, 9th house. She's going to have a smart idea around business, what to do, and of sharing and of trust. These issues are strong there. So she makes you trust and be working, but she may not always have trustworthy people around her. But her choices are important things with the Sun conjunct Venus. Important choices around money, about situations. But the Venus is high in the chart. It's going to go. It starts retrograde and it backs up, then it goes forward, comes back to its own place, and goes up towards the midheaven. It doesn't quite get to the midheaven, but moves up towards the heaven. It moves to a higher and higher profile across a lifetime. Okay, but almost any aspect she makes, anything is going to be tying into one of the T-squares. So there's always going to be some big changes going on, some changes of values going on. So let's just look at the closer view of this. Okay, so her Venus starts retrograde, and it backs up. And in 1979, she's born in 75. In 79, it goes conjunct her Sun. So in those early years, the Venus conjunct the Sun, that would be empowering her emotions, making more powerful. However, in her chart, there's Neptune. There could be really confusing type of empowerment. There could be real difficulties in the early home situation that brought out some of this confusion of values. It's not at the Neptune yet, it's on the Sun, so it's not really there. It's about her confidence, might be some of her best memories at that time. But the Venus is backing up, is backing away from the Mars, is backing. See, it starts with the aspect to Neptune, squaring Neptune, 5-degree orb, 2 degrees to the Sun, and 2 degrees to Mars. But because it's retrograde, it's moving away from, by the time it hits the Sun, it's 7 degrees. It's starting to move out of the orb of the Neptune influence, and then and out of the orb of the Mars influence. So it starts really confusing. This is a bit of an affirmation, like a grandparent, someone who's supporting her, something comes in and changes things. And the world's changing around her, but like in her, some value came in at that point, and then the Venus is going to move back from there into Leo. Another Venus back into Leo. Okay, and then it's going to go. It goes retrograde. It only makes a conjunction to the Sun, which is going to make the conjunction to the Sun 3 times in her life. Okay, and it's going to retrograde back to 1999 when Venus goes direct. So it's in Leo from where are we here? Conjunction, so went into Leo. This is such. So this is a PDF that I'm marking over here. So it goes into Leo.